gonna start with like around number 3 in that kind of like section of it.
Okay. So first do the radical part. What's the square root of 64?
8.
That's the answer.
All right.
What's the square root of minus 50?
Is it? Let me think.
The
I don't know.
very first thing you want to do when you're taking the square root of a negative number is this step. See what I did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, square root of negative 1 is I. So our answer is square root of 50i, but square root of 50 can actually be simplified. In other words, let's take the imaginary part out of it and simplify square root of 50. What's the square root of 50 equal to?
I don't.
Factor it into two numbers, one of which is a perfect square.
Okay, so 5 and 10. Oh wait, no.
Neither of those is perfect squares. So while that is actually a correct answer, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to pull, the only time it's considered simplified is if you can pull a whole number out of it. So
right.
Let's look at the factors of 50. Which of those numbers are perfect square numbers?
25?
Ah, it's the only one. So that's how you want to factor square root of 50. Because now I can pull that as a 5 out. So that's what square root of 50 is, which means this answer is 5 root 2 I. Now, typically you put the I last, which is the way you want to do it, but you got to be very, very careful and don't put it under the radical sign. That is not square root of 2i. That is square root of 2 times I. Notice it is not under the radical sign.
All right.
Okay. All right. Number 5, that are all easy.
All right.
You operate on the real parts and you operate on the imaginary parts completely separately. So tell me what 5 is.
So is it do I subtract 1 from both sides?
No. You apply the negative sign to both terms. So if I'm going to do it that way, here's what I'm going to do. That becomes plus 5 plus 7i. In other words, if I merely remove the parentheses, this is what I get. And now combine the real parts and combine the imaginary parts.
Oh, okay. That's and
put the real part first.
Yeah, so 6 plus 13i.
Plus 12i.
12i, sorry.
Okay. And that's why I say all of these are easy, is because adding, subtracting imaginary numbers is really easy. You just add or subtract the real parts and you add or subtract the imaginary parts. So how about number 6?
All right. So minus 1 minus 5i minus 1 plus
Okay,
8i?
let's look at it differently. This is addition.
Mm-hmm.
So add those real parts. What's minus 1 plus minus 1?
-2.
And what's minus 5i plus a minus 8i?
Um, uh, -13i.
Yeah, there's your answer. In other words, is all I really had to do is just, because I'm adding, I can basically remove the parentheses without doing anything.
Yeah.
In other words, whenever this is an addition sign right there, that means I
Okay.
can remove the second set of parentheses. And I could always remove the first set of parentheses, whether that sign is positive or negative. So if I remove both parentheses, here's what I get. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
By merely removing the parentheses. Now, just combine the real parts. There's the minus 2. Combine the imaginary parts. There's minus 13i. It's as simple as that.
All right.
Okay? So a lot of these are extremely simple. Let's skip 7 because I'm sure you know how to do 7. Let's go on to 8. Little tougher, but not really. Remove the parentheses first, all of them. What do you get on 8?
2i minus 4 plus 7i plus I.
No, no, no. When you remove this second set of parentheses, there's a negative sign in front of that. That negative sign has to apply to both terms.
Okay, so then, all right.
Now I can remove that set of parentheses without doing anything because there's a plus sign in front of it. And I can remove that set of parentheses without doing anything because there's an implied plus sign in front of it. But this middle set, I cannot just remove those. I've got to distribute that negative sign to both terms.
All right.
Now tell me what the final answer is. What's the real part?
Minus 4 minus 5i or 3i or 4i, sorry.
There you go. In other words, you got to combine that with that with that.
Yep.
Okay. Now, hold on 1 second, Britt. Let me. Dogs have burst into my office, despite my best efforts to keep them out. All right. Let's see. Let's look at 9. 9 requires you to know this knowledge. What's I squared equal to?
Is it -2? Wait, hang on. I have a worksheet that says.
I don't want you to look at your worksheet.
All right. Then is it -2?
In other words, the way you square it is you multiply minus 1. You do that. What's that equal to?
-2 squared or
-1.
-1. Okay.
The square root of x squared is x, always. No matter what x is.
All right.
When I take the square root of -1 times the square root of -1, I get -1. Okay. What's I cubed?
It's 2. No, it's not.
I cubed is I squared times I. What's I squared again?
It's just x or I. So
look at my table here. What's I squared?
I squared is I don't.
Look at that right there.
-1.
Okay.
All right.
So I squared times I must be negative I. And now the last one is I to the fourth, which is I squared times I squared. What is that?
So no, -2.
You keep wanting to use 2.
I
We're multiplying here. We are not adding. We are never adding. 1 times 1 is 1. -1 times -1 is 1.
and then okay. So
So what's I to the fourth?
is it -2 squared? I don't know. I oh man.
All right, hold on a second. I'll give you the answer. That's I squared times I squared, right? If you use the rules of exponents, you add the exponents. So I to the fourth is I squared times I squared.
All right.
What's -1 times -1?
-1. Oh wait, no, 1.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the answers to all of these. And this is going to be important. You want to remember that. That's what we're looking at. Now,
All right.
I to the fifth happens to be I times I to the fourth, right? So it's I times I to the fourth. Well, I to the fourth is 1. So I to the fifth is just I. I to the sixth is the same as I squared. I to the seventh is the same as I cubed, and so forth and so on. Every time we have a power that is a divisible by 4, it's going to be 1.
All right.
I to the ninth is I again. I to the 10th is -1. I to the 11th is -I, and I to the 12th is 1. So you got that, you got that, and you got that.
Okay, so then
See that pattern. That pattern is square root of -1, -1, -I, 1.
So
And we
then
repeat it.
is it I then? Is that what 9 is?
No, let's look at it. We got 9I. What is that number? I can't quite remember.
-43.
Negative.
Or wait, no, 43. My bad. 43.
I was going to say, really? They're going to give you a negative number? Oh, it is. I see what's happening. That dot on the I makes it look like a negative sign.
Yeah.
But it isn't. So, what is this answer going to be? In other words, let's first of all separate it. We got 9 times I to the 43. Tell me what that is first.
That is. No, it is.
Divide by 4. What's your remainder?
For the 43?
Divide by 4. What's
3.
your remainder?
3. Or 10. Okay, so
No,
if I divide it by 4,
3.
then it's.
Divide by 4, and you're only concerned about your remainder.
So then it's 3.
That means it's this one right here. So it's the same as 9 times -I.
Okay.
Okay? If I said to you, I to the 502nd power, divide by 4, what's your remainder?
Hang on, let me. Is that like 100? I don't know. It's just I?
No, it's I squared. If you divide by 4, your remainder is 2. Know that 4 goes into all hundreds evenly. Divides evenly into that, divides evenly into that, divides evenly into that. It divides evenly into that. So
Alright.
when you're dividing into a 3-digit number, your remainder is that.
Okay.
And that is what you put. In other words, I to the 502nd is the same as I squared, which is -1. So the only real thing you have to remember is that column right there. You need to know what I is, I squared, I cubed, and I to the 4th. And then you need to know that it repeats every 4.
Okay. So with 10, would that be a different thing because negative? Or would I just like...
Let me look at 10. No, that's the same thing. So divide the exponent by 4, what's your remainder?
Um,
The -3 doesn't have anything to do with it yet.
2. Is
Okay.
2 the remainder?
So what's I squared equal to?
-1.
Correct. So that's the first part of the answer. And then it's -3 times -1. So what's the final answer?
Or 3? Is it 3? Which is, or 3i?
No.
Or is the I gone? It's gone.
I is gone. In other words, whenever you have I squared, that actually converts to a real number. I squared is equal to -1. I and I cubed do not, but I to the 4th is equal to +1. So these are actually real numbers here. Whereas I is not. I is an imaginary number. There's no such thing as the square root of -1. And I cubed is negative square root of -1. So that doesn't really help much. So you want even powers of I convert to real numbers.
Even powers of I convert to real numbers?
Yeah.
Alright.
In other words, I squared, I to the 4th, I to the 6th, I to the 8th, I to the 10. All of those are real numbers.
Okay.
Now, 11. Hold on a minute. Let me scroll up. When you multiply, just use FOIL. Pretend that I is like X.
Okay. So,
FOIL these things.
and then that means -3 times -3. Hang on. I'm just gonna
You can do it on your calculator. I don't care.
-3 times -3. -3 times 4.
Hold on.
I
-3 times -3. Got to get
is
an answer
9.
for that. Okay.
9.
Next term.
-12i.
Correct. What's the next term?
Then -18i.
Correct. And what's
And then the last one is 24i.
What's the sign in front of it?
A positive.
Notice that if I were to write that, it has no meaning. I can't write an additional term onto a polynomial without a sign in front of it. That is not assuming there's a plus sign there. That makes no sense mathematically. You have got to write the sign when you are writing terms in a polynomial.
All right.
Okay? Now, let's take apart that because that's a real number. What is 24i squared?
24 or 24 times -1,
Which is minus 24.
Yeah.
Now I can combine those. Combine those. What do you get?
9 minus 30i minus 24.
Right. And now I can combine that real number with that real number. So I get minus 15 minus 39. And that's the final answer. So
Okay.
all you're doing is foiling and then converting your I-squares to -1. That's all you're doing.
All right.
Okay. Let's try one more. Let's try more than one more. Let's do number 12. Foil it?
I'm gonna try this on my own and see if I get it right. Can I do that?
Absolutely. But
All
do
right.
it out loud, verbally, and I'll just write your answer. I won't say anything.
Okay. So -5 times, or wait, yeah, -5 times. No. You do the inside terms. My bad. 3i
Hold on.
times
Foil.
-3i times.
Hold on.
Wait.
Foil. The F stands for the first. That's
Okay.
the terms.
And then okay.
The outside stands for those two terms. The outside terms. The inside terms stands for those two terms. And the L stands for the only thing left is those two.
Okay.
So that's what FOIL means, is you do the first, and then the outside, and then the inside, and then the last. So what do you get when you do that?
So -5 times -5 is 25, and then -5 times 3i is -15i, and then -3i times -5 is minus 15.
Hold on.
Oh no, positive 15 plus 15i, and then -3i times 3i is -9i squared.
Perfect. Now, first thing I can see immediately is those go away. Right? I got minus 15i plus 15i.
They just cancel each other out.
They do. And then convert your I squared to -1 and you'll have your answer.
25 plus 9?
34.
Yeah, so that's all right, sweet.
That's the answer. Hold on a second. My dog wants back out. No satisfying these creatures.
I know, my cat jumps up on my desk and walks in front of the screen and stuff, and I'm like, what are you doing?
They went in, they went in, they went in, and then they went out. Okay.
Yeah.
So 13, a little different because we have three things. Well, when you have three things that you're multiplying, multiply that by that, and take your result and multiply it by that. That's how you do it.
Okay, so that by that, and then that by that, and multiply your result.
Do that by that first.
Okay, so -2i times -i is 3i squared? Is that?
You're not adding. You have a tendency to want to add when you're multiplying.
So, oh no, it's my bad. 2i squared. That, yeah,
correct.
That is right.
All right, so that's the result of the first two terms. And now I'm multiplying it by that. Now, you can convert that I squared immediately if you like, and it's probably the best thing to do.
Okay,
so what is
2 times -1. 2 times -1 is -2, so -2 times.
Hold on, let me write it out. Step by step. Okay, now proceed.
And then, so now I'm just going to distribute normally, right?
Correct.
Yeah, and then, so that's 4 and then plus 12i.
Perfect. That's it. You cannot, in other words, if you don't have an I squared, you can't convert it to a real number, or an I to the fourth, or an I to the sixth. If you have an I to an odd power, then it's staying imaginary.
All right.
Okay. Before we go, let's just make sure you know what 14 means.
Yeah, I think do. I just write it down twice and then multiply it by each
Exactly.
other.
Exactly.
I can do
Then
that
you're
on
going to
my.
have an I squared that you have to convert to a minus 1. Let's do one of these solving by square roots before I let you go. I know it's 8 o'clock,
Okay.
but I want to make sure we do at least one of these.
Awesome. All right. Let's do 16.
Okay? First step,
So would I get rid of the 9?
correct. How do you do it?
So add 9 to both sides.
Okay, so that
Well,
gives me this.
12m squared equals 156.
Okay, now what?
I got to get rid of the square root.
No,
So
there's no square root. There's a square. Get
the
that.
square, my bad.
Only get rid of that after you've isolated that. So you got to get rid of something else first.
12.
Okay, how do I get rid of 12?
Subtract? No. Do I
No?
have to divide it?
Yes. 12 is a
Okay.
multiplier right now, correct?
Yes.
You always do the opposite. If you're
Okay.
trying to get rid of something that is a multiplier, then you're going to divide by 12.
All right.
Okay?
So does
The
that mean it's
12, see, the 12 is not being squared. Only the m is being squared. So if the
yeah.
12 was being squared, we would take the square root of both sides, but the 12 isn't. So we got to get rid of it before we take the square root of both sides. So
So
now I
then
have m squared equals,
13.
okay, what's m equal to?
Um, would it be considered? No. All right. Never mind. So m is equal to um, th uh,
Square root of 13.
that would be the answer, but
Here, hold on.
there's no.
Hold on a second. No, there is something else, but I want to make sure you knew. First of all, this is an equation that we're going to solve by taking the square root of both sides. When you take the square root of both sides, always begin your answer with the words plus or minus.
Yeah, plus or minus.
There's the answer right there.
Okay.
If you leave off the plus or minus, you will lose points. Guaranteed. There is no teacher in the United States that will not take off points if you leave that off. Because there are two answers. There's not one answer. There is plus square root of 13 and there is minus square root of 13. If you square either of those, you get 13. So
All right.
when I have m squared equals 13, if I had m squared equals 16, solve that.
That's 4.
No, it's plus or minus 4.
Oh, dang it.
Remember what I said? I said
Yeah, I
you
know.
solve by taking the square roots. Your answers are always going to be plus or minus. Always.
Yeah, you just. All right.
It's hard to
I
remember. I mean, I'm telling you, 95% of my students miss the plus or minus. They just don't remember it. I wish there was a song like the alphabet song.
Yeah.
To teach people that, because it's hard to teach people to put that plus or minus in there. And like I said, I guarantee you will lose points. Every teacher will take off if you leave the plus or minus out of
All right.
it. Okay? All right, Britt, I will let you go for tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the help.
You're welcome. Talk to you next time.
Yep. Adios.
Bye-bye.